Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today, I got a pretty interesting topic for you guys, so stick around for that. You want to hear what I have to say. But before we do that, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Anyway, let me get into this topic here. Now, I know a lot of you people right here. I'm sure this topic is, going to make a lot of people turn their heads. I'm sure a lot of people is there seeing this video. I'm sure they're already smashing the dislike button or unsubscribing from the channel, but I want you guys to hear me out, right? Because I think I have some solid points that I want to make for you guys, and I'm very interested to hear what some of you think at the end of this video, and especially in the comments after we're done here. So after the James Harden acquisition last season, right? Prior to that, I thought that the Brooklyn Nets were probably one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. At least a lot of us thought they were going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? We thought they were good, but we didn't think they were the overwhelming favorites. In fact, I thought that the Clippers were the favorites to win the NBA championship. Some people thought it was the Lakers, and some people even thought it was the Brooklyn Nets. But after they got James Harden, after they acquired James Harden, I had some major reservations about the Brooklyn Nets, right? Maybe part of it was fear, right? Because I wanted the Clippers to win. I wanted Kawhi Leonard to win. So maybe a part of that was just fear. And I'm like, oh my God, they got this guy, and now he's going to mess up the chances for the Clippers to win. Probably that's so. Maybe that happened. But the other part of it was due to the fact that I just didn't see how that team was going to end up becoming a good enough defensive team, or even a decent defensive team. Why do I say that? Because all three of those players, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, none of these players had ever made a single all defensive team, not even an all third defensive team. Offensively, they were, out of this world, but they weren't great individual defenders to begin with. So I thought to myself, I said, okay, wait, you have this team, they have some great offensive players, but they don't play defense. How is this all going to work? Like I didn't see how it was going to work. And then on top of that, you look at some of their skill sets. I thought a lot of their skill sets were quite redundant, especially those of Kyrie Irving and James Harden. I was like, okay, these guys do a lot of the same things. So how is this going to work, given the fact that there's only one ball? And a lot of people concurred with that line of thinking, including Charles Barkley and others. A lot of people out there didn't think that it was going to work. They were like, okay, wait a minute, what type of experiment is this, right? But shortly after that, I quickly started to understand that this team could be successful, right? And part of that had to do with KD. Why? Because Kevin Durant is one of these players that doesn't need the ball in his hands to be successful. He is a magician at scoring while moving without the ball in his hand. He's one of the few players in the NBA that are good at doing that. You have KD, you have Kawhi, you obviously have Klay Thompson, you have Stephen Curry. I think Luka Doncic to a certain extent. KD, he can score coming off of screens and picks at a very high level. He doesn't waste a lot of dribbles, a lot of energy. He knows exactly what spot he wants to get to. And he is extremely efficient. So he's the prototypical offensive player that you want. He doesn't waste dribbles. He's extremely efficient, and he can just keep scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring. So KD was a little bit different, right? But after I witnessed them play against the Clippers for the first time, this is when KD and all of these guys were healthy, right? KD was there, Kawhi and all of these guys were there. And the Clippers played them in a very close game. And I think it was in the fourth quarter, and, it was a close game. Clippers were playing them perfectly. Then all of a sudden, their big three got loose, and I think they hit like 7 straight field goals, and it was game over. And I said to myself at that point, I said, wait a minute, okay, how are the Clippers supposed to be able to beat this team, right? What team in the NBA has a trio of players like that? And since then, I was convinced that, listen, this is the best team in the NBA. I had no questions about that, especially after beating the Clippers, and I was utterly convinced that they were the best team. But since they suffered some injuries last season and they didn't make the NBA Finals this year, however, I have a different concern. Usually going into a season, teams have concerns about health and all of these different things. In this particular case, that is not my concern. My concern is all of the other things that may happen outside of basketball that may affect the future success of this team. For example, we have the situation with Kyrie Irving. Let's just assume the fact that Kyrie Irving does not decide to get vaccinated. What does that mean? That means that Kyrie Irving has a chance of missing 50% of the games. Now, do we think that if Kyrie Irving is missing games, the Brooklyn Nets with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and these other guys, Blake Griffin, and all of the Marcus Aldridge and all these guys that they have, are we in fear that they won't make the playoffs? No one has that type of fear here. However, if Kyrie Irving is not available in the playoffs, this could definitely hurt them. And also you have to take into account chemistry, right? Teams usually that win championships, they need to have some level of chemistry. Even if we look at the Miami Heat back in 2011 when they formed their big three, the first year didn't work out, right? The chemistry wasn't there. I think Dwayne Wade and LeBron James hadn't figured out who was the alpha on the team, who was the number one option, and ultimately Dwayne Wade ended up conceding that to LeBron James, and then I think things started working then. But even then, according to a lot of reports, I heard that Dwayne Wade and LeBron had a lot of clashings. They had a lot of big arguments together in order to try to figure out the right chemistry that they needed in order to win a championship. So that's one of my concerns. What if something happens with Kyrie? Another thing could be, what if just something what if something unforeseen happens? Maybe Steve Nash, who's a rookie coach, I think he's been coaching for 2 years now. This will be his second season in the NBA. What if he goes there and starts making some blunders in the playoffs, right? Starts making some bad decisions in the playoffs. And I got to give some credit to Steve Nash. Last season, watching him, coach that team, especially in the playoffs, he made some brilliant moves, I got to say. He made some brilliant moves for a rookie coach or for a first-time coach. He made some impressive decisions last year in the playoffs. But what if something happens this year and something else throws them off? I just think that I just have this fear that something may happen to the Brooklyn Nets, and I feel as if it's going to be something that is self-inflicted, and that's my biggest fear. I don't see any team out there being able to beat this team. I just don't see it. But I feel as if this team somehow could beat themselves. That's the feeling that I get, because let's just be honest. Y'all ain't never seen nothing like this before, man. Let's just be real about this team. First of all, I want you guys to think about this for a second. Just think about this. Between Kevin Durant and James Harden, these two dudes have 7 scoring championships together. Just think about that. You have a team where there are 2 players that have won at least 3 scoring titles. Just last season, Kyrie Irving came off averaging a 50-40-90 season. And oh, by the way, Kevin Durant came pretty close to averaging, having a 50-40-90 season. And oh, by the way, James Harden was just the best point guard in the NBA. It's absolutely absurd. When you think about this trio of this collection of players, this collection of talent, this amalgamation of talent, I just think that it would be a darn shame if they didn't win at least one NBA championship, at least one. And if you think about it in these terms, I think it would even be a disappointment if all they won was only one NBA championship. What was the last team that you can think of that had this type of talent? Unless you go back to the Golden State Warriors, and they ended up winning 3-4 NBA championships. I think it was like 3. 3 NBA championships, 2 with KD, 1 without him, 3 NBA. That was a dynasty, right? That was a dynasty. And in this case, they pretty much created the same thing. When they had Steve Kerr, it wasn't like as if Steve Kerr had like a 10 years of tenure in the NBA as an NBA coach. No, he was a pretty young coach. It wasn't that decorated, and he went out there and won the NBA championship. And maybe that's some of the things that Kevin Durant and some of these players are looking at and saying, listen, we can create this type of success here in Brooklyn. And maybe KD's like, listen, and I can be the focal point of that. Maybe some people are looking at me like, oh, I joined Stephen Curry, and maybe people are going to say, yes, I was the best player, but I'm obviously not going to get the same recognition as Stephen Curry gets in that town. And maybe KD said, you know what, I can come out here and I can create that same thing. And I think he's pretty much done that. The only thing that is remaining is for them to start winning championships. And something in me, I just have this feeling that something may go wrong. I'm not trying to jinx them or anything. It's just a feeling I have. Why do I say that? Because so many things are happening already. Right? There's so much kind of drama already going on, and it's so soon. Usually when drama starts to rise is when teams have won 1, 2 NBA championships. That's when things like that start to happen. If you go back to the Golden State Warriors, that's when it happened. KD had already won 2 Finals MVPs back to back in a row, and then things started happening. But now they haven't even won a championship yet, let alone made it to an NBA Finals. And this is happening, and I just have some concerns. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think? Do you have some legitimate concerns, or do you think, listen, everything will just be fine? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro. Wishing you guys an amazing day. Catch you guys on the next episode.